If you are single and looking for love or ready for love, this is going to be a perfect episode for you. I've got a freaking rock star guest by the name of Tony Gaskins with me today, who is a dedicated husband of 12 years, a father of 2 boys, and in his spare time, he's a best-selling author, international speaker, and celebrity life coach. At just 25 years old, Tony was on the Oprah Winfrey Show. Yes, the Oprah Winfrey Show, the Tyra Banks Show, and the 700 Club, telling different portions of his life story, which he shares with us on this episode today. He's really exposed his own mistakes and turned them into powerful lessons. He's really transformed his mess into his message. And at even 26, he was called on by the NBA, NFL, and NCAA to speak to athletes about life, love, and responsibility as young adults. So Tony's message has gone viral online. He's amassed 3 million plus supporters who enjoy his really real and raw delivery of life's wisdom about so many things, including love, relationships, self-love. And I'm just so excited for you guys to meet him. So without further ado, please meet Tony Gaskins. All right, Tony, I am so excited for our episode today. And I love that I'm having you as a man, bringing that male perspective to the importance of self-love and cultivating powerful relationships with the opposite sex. So thank you so, so much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me. It's my pleasure.
Cool. So I'd love to start out by asking you if you're willing to share a moment in your life where you would say for yourself, like your self-love and your love life, maybe a low point that you had and how you overcame and transcended that to get to where you are today.
When I was 23, that's when I got married. So I got married in March, and then I believe it was June, my wife was leaving me. And she was leaving me because I wanted to go back to the street life, being in the streets with my cousins, hustling. And that's what I had grew from, or that's what I had gone through after college. I got kicked out of college. I was a college football player, and my coach kicked me off the team after 3 years. So having this dream of being a pro athlete and then losing that opportunity and then having to go home and start over, my only other option, I was like, go to the streets, and hustle and get fast money. And my wife, when she met me, she knew I was kind of in that space, and she told me, you're better than that. You're not one of those guys. And I pretended to listen. And when I married her, I thought that I could go back and kind of fool her because now she was stuck. Now you're married. And we had a child who was about 2 months. No, he was probably a month old, and he was in the intensive care unit. And because he was born 2.5 months early, and he was born 2 pounds. So here I am trying to manipulate my way, to have my way. And she was like, I'm not having it. And it was at that moment at 23 years old that it was kind of like my lowest, because I realized that I had been living a lie and that I had been living beneath my potential. And here I was, lost a college scholarship, didn't get a college degree, get married young, still broke, son born early. I'm thinking it's his deathbed, and I'm still trying to skate by. And that was when I kind of hit, that what I would call rock bottom, in the sense of realizing that if I wanted to have my wife and I wanted to have my son, that I would have to grow up and be a man. And so that's really when the change started for me, 23 years old, when I started to change what was going into my mind, change who I was hanging around, what I was telling myself. And that's when my life began, to go up.
So you decided, it's interesting that you said this. I was just reading a book today about how important your environment is and like your inputs, right? What kind of, I would love for you to speak on that, because I feel like a lot of times when we want to create change in our lives, a lot of people will miss this piece of actually completely shifting our environment. Could you
Mm.
talk on that and how you did that for yourself?
Well, the environment I come from was an environment of toxic masculinity, so all the men were abusive to their women, verbally, physically, emotionally. Every man cheated. So being able to, a lot of women thought they knew faithful men, but when you're a man, you can see a man differently. And so you can look a man in his eyes and tell if he's a cheater, if you know where you are in your life. And so I realized that majority of the men I were meeting, I would say 80%, I felt like were cheaters and toxic and controlling. And so that was the messaging that I had been getting. And then outside of that, you have the music. And the music was talking about selling drugs, selling drugs, being a thug, robbing, it's rap music. And so I listen today, even Jay-Z at 50 years old still raps about drug dealing, from time to time. And so it's like, that's the messaging that I was getting. So when I made this decision to change my life, what I did was I took the CDs, it was 2007. I took the CDs that I had in my car and I broke them in half and I littered. I shouldn't have thrown them out, but I threw them out the window. And literally, this is a literal thing. And then I took my iPhone and I got the little earbuds like I have in now. And I downloaded Zig Ziglar podcast. And I didn't know Zig Ziglar, don't even know how I heard of him, but I got his podcast and he had over like 100 episodes. And I would listen for 8 to 10 hours a day. I just would have one in my ear and the other one hanging out, and I would go to work. I worked as a counselor in a group home and, like a in-home staff, but you call it a counselor. And I'm working with these grown men who are mentally disabled, but they have like a criminal record. And I'm working with them, helping them with home skills, cooking, going to the bank, and I'm listening 8 to 10 hours. So driving to work 30 minutes, working 8 hours, driving home 30 minutes. I'm just feeding myself inspiration and motivation. And I did that for about 2 years straight. And so it was the equivalent of getting a PhD. The amount of, I just heard a gentleman say the other day, I believe it was Brian Tracy, and he was saying at top schools like Yale or what have you, to get a doctorate, you have to read about 50 books a year. He was like, so if you turn your automobile into a university and you listen to an audiobook every week, you're consuming 52 books a year, which is the equivalent of, after a few years, getting a doctorate. And so that's what happened with me. It literally changed my life. And I can't really stress that enough. So I changed, and I also called my friends and I said, look, I'm not coming to the club anymore. I'm not hanging out anymore. I'm not going to be, in the streets. And they were like, man, you turning your back on us, man. You better than us. That's how it is. That's how you feel just because you just got married. And I'm like, no, this is about me. And they didn't understand it. But now they are still very close to the same place they were in 12 years ago. And they look at my life and they're like, wow, that separation created elevation.
Oh, I love that. And I love that you just went there, because I was going to ask you about your friendships and your relationships and how you, if you made big changes there as well. So it sounds like you did. And that can be one of the hardest, especially if, you're a little, have that people pleaser in you and you don't want to hurt someone's feelings and you're afraid of the backlash from making a decision like that. I think it takes a lot of courage to really, it sounds to me like you were so at this point where you knew where you wanted to go. You had that vision, and that in and of itself was more powerful than any of the fears of what people thought of you and all those things. So super powerful and beautiful lesson for those of you listening / watching. sometimes you got to make those tough decisions. They're not freaking easy and they're super uncomfortable. And we get to do it because our vision, our mission is much bigger than that.
Mm-hmm.
So I love that. Cool. And thank you so much for sharing that with us, Tony. I really appreciate that. And I love hearing the journey and where people came from. I just think it really, a lot of times people may look at you and, you know, who you are today and be like, oh, he probably always had it, and it's like, no, I love when people hear where you came from and your own hero's journey and where, how you got to where you are today. So I love that, really making sure your inputs, your surroundings, your environment, I mean, the amount of education that's out there for us today is literally limitless. So, for those of you listening, take advantage of that. Podcasts like Tony did, Audibles, all of it. So it's really cool. I would love to shift gears into what I'm super excited to talk about if you're ready. And I know I got a lot of single women who listen to my podcasts. I also have some women who are in relationships or married. And what I'm really interested in going over is really how to attract your one, your person. And I know you have your 3 Bs. Mm-hmm. So I would love for you to dive into that. And what are those 3 Bs to really preparing yourself for that relationship?
The 3 Bs, I call them, they stand for brain, brand, and body. And truthfully, it's really about becoming your best self. And I believe that's where a lot of times people have issues, women in particular, is trying to attract instead of focusing on becoming. So you ask yourself, what is a man looking for? What does he want? Who do I need to be? How should I dress? How should I walk? How should I talk? What skills do I need to possess? But it's really about becoming your best self. So when you break it down to feeding your mind, the brain, and you feed your mind and you're getting your books in, your audio books or reading, you're listening to your podcast, you are, whether it's spiritual work, reading your book of faith, you're feeding your mind. That takes care of the brain. So now that new knowledge, you elevate to a new level. You have a much different conversation because now it's not just about the latest reality television show. It's not just about The Bachelor or The Bachelorette, whatever is on television, Married at First Sight, 90 Day Fiance. But it's really, you can talk. And that's what really caught me with my wife. We sat down to talk and we talked 6 hours straight without debating and arguing, just conversing. And she talked to me about faith. She talked to me about sports. She talked to me about politics. She was able to speak on everything just because she had developed her mind. And so that took care of the brain. The next, the brand, is having goals, having ambition. Even if you know that you would prefer to sit down if you have a child and you want to not work for a period of time, or if that's a month, 3 months, 6 months, so you can focus on your child and get them to a place to where now you can pick back up the business or go back to work. But having still a brand, if it's a blog, if it's a podcast, creating something that you can't be fired from. So when you just have a job, you're still a dependent because they can give you a pink slip any day. But when you create something you can't be fired from, like you having a podcast, or even if it's just a blog on blogger.com, now you elevate yourself. Now you're unfireable. And when I met my wife, she had these dreams and these visions of what she wanted to do, of becoming a doctor. And I was like, man, that represents ambition. And we were in college. And then lastly, the body. Knowing that your body is your temple and understanding that you being at your best. So whether it's eating right, working out, sleeping right, what you put into your body, what you put on your body, but understanding this is your temple. And so when you learn how to treat your body with love and respect, your skin glows, you radiate. And so that's what I break it down to, but it's more so about becoming your best self. And when you become your best self, then you attract the person for you. And when I say attract, I don't mean who approaches you. I mean who you are willing to settle down with.
Mm. Yeah, I love that. So with the brain, brand, body, it's really investing into those parts of yourself as a woman and getting really clear on what our vision is. And that, I mean, I feel like that's a really attractive thing to have. It's even, you know, when you're talking about body, I know so many women, as women, we just pick ourselves apart in the mirror. You know, we'll just every little thing we'll pick apart. And even that in of itself is just so unhealthy, because you're feeding your subconscious and yourself all of these negative thoughts of your body and what you don't like, and you're focusing on that, which is, you know, I'm a huge believer in what you focus on is what you get. So it's just kind of keeping you in this loop. So when you were saying like loving and respecting your body, it's yes, what you put into it, and that includes the thoughts as well. You know, it's like, yes, the exercise, the food, nutrition, as well as how you think about yourself. So that's been a huge one for me personally. And, you know, I'm sure a lot of women listening can relate to that. And for me, a huge piece of me becoming the confident woman I am today was me fully accepting and feeding love into my body. So I love that.
That is the most important quality. It is the most beautiful thing in the world. And it hurts as a man to see women beat themselves up over their image. It really, really hurts, because what we fail to realize is that you are at your most beautiful state when you truly accept yourself for who you are. Meaning that when you do the best that you can do. So if you can work out 3 times a week, if you can eat healthy and you can choose the salad over the fried chicken, and you can choose the water with lemon over the Mountain Dew, and you make the best choices that you can make. You want to fix your smile and you say, you know, I'm going to go and I'm going to spend this $99 a month to get braces or Invisalign. And you do what you can do and then fall in love. Make a choice that you're going to love you with your best effort at your best self. That is the most beautiful thing. But today we're in this society where perception is reality. And so I watch so many women who are my clients, my family members, watch other women online. And they don't realize that a lot of the women that they're watching online are still struggling with insecurity. And so they see this woman go get her lips done, you know, go get her cheeks done, her chin done, her butt done, tummy tuck. And they see these, you know, now even the arms, getting arms done. And so it's like every part of your body can be done. And so when you see someone else go do this and everyone's doing it, it makes it the norm. And women, a lot of women deep down care what the person they will marry thinks, but forget that the person that you will marry or that you're with wants you at your best, not at Dr. Miami's best, not at Dr. New Jersey's best, but wants you to love the skin that you're in. And if you can't change it with a gym or orthodontist or how you're eating, then really question, do I really have to change this, and why? It's your body at the end of the day, and you can do whatever you want to do. So I never want to tell a woman what to do with her body, but I do want to say, question the root of the desire. Why do you want to do it? And if the answer is, oh, because she has it done, so what makes it right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, she looks beautiful. Who says that? Oh, well, that's what I say. Well, what's wrong with you? My lips are too thin. Who said that? Well, people used to tease me in school. Why do you think they teased you? Because they were insecure, because they were hurting. And so anytime I see this struggle happening and I see women go and try to just change everything about them cosmetically, actually the old version looked much more beautiful because it was their pure self. And the other version was who they wanted to become because of self-hate, self-doubt, and comparison. And comparison kills.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, thank you so much for going into that. I love that you just went there. For me, when you were saying that, I know, so I'll just show you right now, actually. So on me, my ears, they used to be like a huge insecurity because one of them sticks out more than the other, right? So this one's like meh, and this one's like meh. And for the longest time, that led me to feel so insecure. Like I wouldn't wear my hair up, and I wanted to I would imagine getting surgery and getting them tucked. So I would like look in the mirror and hold my ears down and just wish that they were. I also did that with my moles. So I would go like this, and I'd be like, oh, I'm going to get my moles removed. Because I compared myself, just as you said, to the other women who like, oh, they have, face with no dots on them. How come I don't have a clear face? And then I got, just as you said, teased as a child in school about my ears. Girl came up to me, you have elf ears, in the middle of class in front of all the kids. So I held on to that. And now I love those parts about me. I think that they make me unique. And I will not pay to get a surgery for my ears. I will never get these removed because I know they're a unique part of me. A lot of people don't have this. A lot of people don't have one ear bigger than the other, and that's cool. And now I'm at a place where I really love and accept that. And I mean, for me to feel that way about myself is just, such a breakthrough from where I was before in my life. And I think that's such an important thing for women to get, is those parts of you that are unique, that you were blessed with, that you were born with. Like you say you have, bigger hips, or say you have whatever the little unique thing about your body type, or your, maybe your hair, you were born with lots of curls and you want straight hair. It's like, how can I really, where is that coming from? Like you said, what's the intent? Like, why do I want straight hair? Why do I want what I don't have? Right? Typically it comes down to an experience, like you said, or a comparison. I mean, I totally see that. So I love that the way you laid that out was so cool. And I want to ask you, as a man, what would you say is like the most attractive trait as a man when you look at a woman? What is the most attractive trait? What's the most attractive thing?
True humility, which is authentic confidence. So I remember seeing a lady in the mall, and I was with my wife. She could have been my girlfriend at the time. And this lady, if I had to guesstimate, was probably 250 to 300 pounds. But she walked with such a confidence. Now, mind you, the average, for women, her age and height was probably around 150, or 125. And so here she was, built larger than other women. She had, what my mom called meat on her bones, voluptuous, or whatever the term. And I talked to my wife, I think she was my girlfriend, and I said, you see that lady over there? I was like, I say, that is so beautiful, but society doesn't recognize it, doesn't reward it, and makes women who have her shape feel bad about themselves. And she had on form-fitting clothes. And, but she walked with a confidence, just, she was so sure of herself. And even if she wasn't all the way happy and she was working towards a new goal, she was content where she was, even though she was still hungry for more growth.
Mm.
And that is what's beautiful. And so, and the thing about it is, that's what radiates to a man. Like, we don't even, before you mention your beauty marks on your face, I didn't even notice it as something outside of the norm. And then when you mentioned it, I was like, wow, that really is what adds to you. Like, that's what makes you who you are. And then when you showed me, you know, your ear, you know, I have a flick on my ears, and my wife teases me about it. Our youngest son has it too. And so when you showed me that, it fits perfectly with the symmetrics of your smile, your eyes, your eyebrows, your nose. It fits perfectly so that it doesn't even stand out. So to another young lady, when you were kids, she noticed it because deep down she was jealous of it, because you had a unique trait, a unique mark that made you stand out. And she noticed that. And she wanted to make you feel bad about it. And that's how we are as adults. But if you took and you went and got surgery, now the symmetry of your face would be off based on what the creator intended for you to have. So now it may still look normal, but it wouldn't be uniquely you. And I think as a man, and a lot of times ladies don't believe this because you see the likes on Instagram of certain women who are doing a certain pose or a certain bathing suit or something. You're like, okay, that's what men like. But truthfully, it's not. It's really, honestly, as men, when we look at those women, the men who have the freedom to hit the like button, he's actually doing it as a pat on her back to say, hey, I'm here for you. I see that you're struggling. I see that you're seeking attention by putting on baby oil and putting on a thong bathing suit and lying on that chair with your butt in the air. So I'm going to hit the like button because I see your inner struggle and your pain. Even if he thinks it's beautiful or sexy or what have you, men behind closed doors talk about the pain and the struggle of a woman's insecurities and how we see it show up in the world. And a lot of times that woman may not even realize that she's a window and that every man can see her brokenness and her pain, that she's screaming for love and attention. And it's not about just being proud of working out and wanting to show off her body. It's deeper than that. And that is where true confidence, which is humility, knowing who you are, being able to look a person in the eye, say hello and smile, and have a radiant glow that says, I love me. I love where I am, but I'm extremely excited about where I'm going. And as men, we're trained from birth to read people. So we pick it up in 0.5 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
When a woman is going through a breakup, we can see it. When a woman is happily married, we can see it. When a woman is stressed, angry, frustrated, even if she is smiling, we can see her pain.
Mm. Yeah. I think that's huge. And that's why it's so important to be in a place where you're energetically aligned with yourself, because men can feel that. Just as we as women, we can feel that with a man as well. You know, we're intuitively guided and we can feel that as well. And I love that. So when I asked you what the most attractive trait was to you, I don't know if you ever listen to Alison Armstrong's work. She more studies men than women. But Alison Armstrong, she's one of my favorites in the relationship space. And she says that when men were polled on what the most attractive quality is in a woman, and it's funny because all women weren't expecting this to be what they said as the number one. They thought it was going to be like their body or, you know, whatever. And it actually ended up being confidence. So confidence to a man. So you said that exact thing. And I like that you actually said authentic confidence and humility, because yes, it's different than like that putting myself out there for external validation, because that's not really confidence. That's trying to prove something, which if you're trying to prove something, it means that you don't believe you have it. So you've got to prove it to get the likes or what have you, like you explained. So I think that's a really beautiful point. And that's why it's so important. This leads perfectly into what I'm so excited to talk about with you next is self-love. And I know that's something you are so passionate about in preparing for your, not even just preparing, but also in relationship. It's both. And so I'd love for you to speak on how you view self-love and why it's so important for a woman to have self-love.
Mm-hmm. I see self-love as the highest level of love. The highest level of love, and also the highest level of what I would call the love continuum, where you go from lust to like to love to self-love. Because we can look at other people and see what we like about them, but sometimes we can't look at ourselves and see what we like about ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
So we will start with lust, and then we will be attracted to this person. And then you talk to that person, you deal with that person. In today's society, you may have sex with that person. First night, first week, first month, people are jumping right in the bed. So in that time, you skip over like, and you go from lust right to love. And you start trying to love because now you're in a situationship or a relationship. And so you skip over like. But when you have self-love, because we can love someone and not love ourselves. And we've always heard people say, you can't love someone if you don't love yourself. But it's not actually true, because a lot of times we love others instead of ourselves. So we will, a woman will cook for a man, clean for a man, sex on demand, do everything for him and neglect herself. The same thing we have to do for children. A lot of times, when people who have children, they neglect themselves for their kids. And we can love someone else without truly loving ourselves. But self-love, when you tap into self-love, it's the only form of love that I believe should hurt. And what I mean by that is it's the pain of discipline that will hurt. To look yourself in the mirror and say, what do I need to work on? And when you look at those things that you need to work on, the work will hurt. Because that may mean getting up earlier. It may mean studying for an hour in the morning. It may mean working out 3 days or 5 days a week. It may mean limiting social media to 30 minutes down from 2 hours. It may mean doing 2 workouts, one in the morning, one at night. It may mean cutting off toxic friends and family members. And all of those things will be painful. But that is self-love. When you have this checklist of things areas you want to grow in, things you want to work on, and you create a plan and you create a regimen and a routine, and you instill that discipline in your life, that commitment, that's when you truly are loving yourself. And self-love in a relationship means that I love you and I will be selfless, meaning that I will give love without keeping score. But if the love is not respected and reciprocated, I love myself enough to let you go so you can grow. That is self-love. And a lot of times we don't have that. And I coach a lot of women, and from the ages of 16 to 68 on 6 different continents. A lot of my clients are lawyers, doctors, professors, professional athletes, gold medalists, Olympians, Division I sports coaches, women who make hundreds of thousands or millions a year, top models. I coach top models, Victoria's Secret, what have you, all the major brands. And one thing that I see, especially with single women, is a lot of times a woman will say, I'm ready. but truly not be ready. So body is ready, but the mind isn't ready. Brand is ready, but the body isn't ready. Body and brand is ready, but the brain isn't ready. Brain is ready, but the brand isn't ready. So it's always just one small tweak, one area of self-love that you're ignoring because it's painful. Because the discipline and the dedication and the consistency that it will take is too painful. And that is what limits us and hinders us from really attracting who and what we deserve in life.
Wow. That is so powerful and so true. As you're saying that, I'm relating to a lot of what you're saying personally. And I told you this, I was in my coaching group with my women in my magnetic confidence course. And one of them was saying like, I am ready. I've been ready. And like, when am I going to meet him? When is he going to find me? And I challenged her and saying, well, clearly you're not. You're not fully ready. Because if you were, it would happen. I mean, I'm a firm believer in that. And I love that you said it's a place that we're not willing to go there. We're not willing to go to this painful place. We're not creating the time to go there. We're not creating the space. So I mean, I would love to hear from you, like how, like say it's for example, she's my client, for example, she doesn't know what is in the way and she's confused. She feels like she's ready. What do you, when you have your clients who are in that same kind of boat, we're like, I feel like I'm ready and why isn't it happening for me? What would be your biggest piece of advice to tell them, or your biggest coaching for them to tell them to do, maybe in a tool that you have or a process that they get to go through? Do you have anything like that you recommend for these women?
Mm-hmm. I ask that you write down everything that you are grateful for. Everything that you are grateful for in life, down to the carpet under your feet and the ceiling over your head, and count all of those things. If it's 1,000 things, to truly instill gratitude in your heart, contentment in your heart. And then write down the areas that you have heard people tell you and areas that you know you need to work on. And after you write down, so one area may be attitude. So what's wrong with your attitude? Well, I get frustrated fast. And I kind of sense some anxiety, and I get frustrated, I get flustered, and it makes me snap at people, or it makes me yell, or it makes me get defensive. Okay, so what do you need to do when you feel that way? Well, I need to pause. I need to count to 5, count to 10. I need to say what I'm about to say out of my mouth, say it in my head, listen back to it, and ask myself, is this something I should say in this moment? If the answer is no, don't say it. What's the opposite? What can I say instead of this? And so when you do this gratitude check and then you do the growth check, now you're able to see that, for one, I'm not grateful. I'm operating from a place of frustration. And if you're frustrated, you're repelling every man you walk by. So you are frustrated because you feel like it should have happened yesterday. When if your mindset is, I'm happy, I'm whole, I'm healthy, and I'm ready. But if he doesn't show up today or tomorrow or next month, I'm okay because I still have work to do. I'm still working on me. I'm still building my brand, building my company. And maybe this isn't happening so that my brand, my company can grow legs and stand on its own. Because when I meet him, we may backpack the world for 12 months. And if I don't have a funnel and a system and my business doesn't have legs, it can all go bankrupt. So instead of having gratitude and seeing the positive and what you can be doing, so I ask my clients who say, I'm ready. Why hasn't it happened? I say, have you written your book? Have you started your for-profit company? Have you started your nonprofit company? Have you hit your goal weight? Are you reading a book a week or a book a month? And I put these goals out there, and they're like, oh, well, I want to do a nonprofit, but I haven't started it yet. I want to help young teenage girls at the local library meet up and have confidence classes. That's why he's not here yet, because you're not ready. Because you need to activate that dream and give it legs. And the universe knows it. And you won't attract what you want. You'll attract what you are. And so if you're pushing off dreams and you're holding off things that you should be doing, then you're also pushing off the love of your life. And it's all subconscious.
Yeah. And I love that you said, because it's like, instead of having the goal be to get him, it's like, what's the goal to get me to my next level, to get me further along in my journey?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And that's a huge one. And it's like, one thing I kind of felt like you were saying, or I was hearing, was releasing the expectation, like releasing our agenda. Because as you said, then the unfolding, like the backpacking trip, I love that, because you don't know what's in the works for you. And if you're so rigidly attached to how you think it should look, which we as women, especially if you're listening and you're like a controller woman, like I'm a controller woman, we get so rigidly attached to our agendas. It's like, if it doesn't go the way we think it should look, or we want it to look, then we get frustrated. And that, as you said, repels a man.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like, how can we be in a state of flow to where we're surrendering our agendas? We have our desires. There's nothing wrong with having desires. We have our desires, and not being attached to how it's supposed to look in our mind, because the greatest thing could be ready to unfold for you, but because you're so attached the way it should look, you could completely rip yourself off from having that very thing that is ready for you.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. You have to be able to balance hunger and contentment. So you have to be content in the moment while you still desire your goals and you're working towards your goals. And so when you release, it's really is saying, stop operating from frustration. And I always say, when you are 100% happy being single, that's when you're ready for a relationship. Because as long as you are half empty and you don't feel whole, then you are expecting a person to come and complete you. When no one should complete you, they should only compliment you. And if you are half empty, then you will attract someone who is half empty. And instead of complimenting one another, instead of completing one another, you will deplete each other. And so that's what you have to realize about that mindset of saying, I need someone, I want someone. That means that you're operating from a mindset of lack instead of being whole and enough and knowing that you're enough. So you're going to attract a man who he senses that and he plays on that. So he will see that small thing that you call a desire is actually a small amount of desperation that he can play on. So when he lies to you, you'll forgive it because you're desperate. When he strings you along and treats you amazing for 12 months and then cheats on you in month 13, you'll forgive it because you're desperate. When he asks you for a large sum of money in month 13 for his new startup, you'll deplete your savings because you're desperate. And so if you don't know who you are, whose you are, what you want, and you're not actively working towards that with a sense of gratitude and contentment, even though you have desires, you will attract someone who preys on your weaknesses. And that's what's happening today over and over. And so
and it's because that, like, I see that so clearly now. It's because that's how you complete them.
Mm-hmm.
So it's literally like you said, you're attracting. I mean, for me, I was like getting all like excited when you're saying all this stuff. I'm like, this is like mic drop stuff right here. Like, it's so good. So I really hope you listening to this right now took notes on what he just said, because that's one of my favorite things you said this whole interview. So important. And one of my biggest pet peeves is actually when people say, this is my other half. I'm like, don't say that. because it's that we get to be whole and complete on our own. And it's so true that if we're not, we're going to attract somebody else and it could work out the way that you said, where they're preying on you, and that's how you complete them. And the difference between desperation and desire. That's so key too. So, for those of you listening / watching right now, think about that. Am I in, like, really get real and honest with yourself? Am I in a space of desperation, or am I in a space of desire and surrender? It's such a different energy, and what you attract is going to be a totally different result. So I love that you went there. Thank you. That was awesome.
Awesome.
Okay, so we're nearing the end. It went by so fast, didn't it?
It did.
So I would love to do like a little, well, I have a couple of questions for you that I wanted to get to, but we didn't have enough time. So is there like a book that you really recommend for women listening because I know you listen to podcasts and you do your audibles and you do all those things. Is there something that you really feel, especially for the conversation we've had so far, that you would really recommend to our listeners today?
My best-selling book is called Mrs. Right. And I could have titled it wrong. I'm not sure, but it's called Mrs. Right. And it's a tough book, because it's coming from a male's perspective on what men see when we look at a woman. And for a woman to walk through a man's mind is hard, because a lot of times you don't want to hear it. But that's the book I've received the best feedback from. And my latest book is entitled Make It Work, which is 22 lessons for a happy and healthy relationship. And I released that this year with Simon & Schuster. And so it has become, or about to be, my new best-selling book. So I would recommend those two, because from my heart and the way I'm living my life, just as a servant today, I feel like that's where I gave the most. And then, of course, outside of that, Dr. Gary Chapman's The 5 Love Languages. I feel like everyone has read it, but if you haven't, then you definitely should. And another book that really helped me was For Men Only and For Women Only. It's kind of like they go together, by Jeff and Shanti Feldhahn, I believe it is. For Men Only, For Women Only. Very powerful. So yeah. And if you search my name on Amazon, you'll see, a list of books. I don't want to name them all, but I've kind of been in this space studying it for the last 12 years with everything in me, and everything I learn, I share it.
Beautiful. Thank you. So they can find them both on Amazon.
Mm-hmm.
And where can they connect with you? You have a podcast as well, right?
Yes, I do. I'm not as active as you. But what I do is I answer questions from my listeners. So it may be 100 or more episodes now where I get these long letters that come in, and I read them and I answer them. And so I would say 98% of them come from women, and then the other 2%, of course, are men. So yes, Tony Gaskins Show. On iTunes or wherever you listen, YouTube.
Perfect. And then it's also Tony Gaskins on Instagram as well?
Yes, Tony Gaskins across the board. Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, Tony Gaskins. YouTube, Tony Gaskins.
Awesome. So you're easy to find. Love it. Cool. And then I know you had, I think you shared a free gift, which can you share what that is for our listeners?
It's on TonyGaskinsAcademy.com, and it's called Real Love University. And so it's kind of like A to Z course on love. soul ties, breaking soul ties, healing from those toxic emotional bonds. And then what is love? What is a real woman? What is a real man? What does a healthy relationship look like? So it's kind of almost all inclusive, but not too intense.
Okay, cool. So I will put the link to that in the show notes, you guys. So look for that in the show notes. And Tony, thank you so, so much for coming on my show, for sharing your heart with us, for sharing your wisdom with us. I think there were so many golden nuggets in there. And I really hope those of you listening took notes and do that gratitude check that Tony talked about, because that is powerful. And that's something that you can literally action right after you're done listening to this episode. And I highly encourage you to do so. So thank you so much, Tony. I am so grateful to have met you and to have you on the show today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.